July 2018, a group of consumer advocates banded together to form the American Policyholder Association, a nonprofit watchdog organization that promotes integrity, honesty, and best practices in insurance property loss adjustment.
Insurance fraud happens on all sides. Insurance fraud is one of the #1 white-collar crimes in America, and many parties to the insurance process and the claims process participate in fraud. There's obviously fraud on the consumer side and fraud with contractors, and there are professional criminals, but there is also fraud on the insurer side, either from insurance company employees or from the vendors that the carriers may hire, such as adjusters and engineers and third-party administrators. Unfortunately, in America, nobody is prosecuting the carrier side. Almost all insurance fraud prosecution in this country is done to defend insurance companies.
Our next witness is Mr. Doug Quinn. Mr. Quinn is the executive director of the American Policyholder Association, which is a nonprofit that tracks and reports fraud committed by insurers against their policyholders. Mr. Quinn, it's good to have you. The floor is yours.
You know, we believe this goes back to the 90s with what's called the McKinsey Report, a consulting firm sort of trained insurance companies to use their claims department as a profit center. And they actually trained their staff to come in and short people on claims. They did it specifically starting out with Allstate, and then they took it on the road for almost every other insurance company, and it is now basically industry standard.
And we appreciate the association because what it does is it helps to bring education to the process. And look, I always believe that sunlight is the best disinfectant, a lot of transparency, a lot of education, and hopefully when it's all said and done, consumers benefit.
But the threat of imprisonment is a daunting threat hanging over the head of perpetrators. APA, kudos for getting in the game at that level.
Why does FEMA, Mr. Quinn, repeatedly keep hiring these lawyers and engineers who act like thieves?
And they get paid quite well for perpetrating or supporting fraud, sir.
Why does FEMA keep doing this?
We have asked that question over and over. FEMA has told us that they do not have the ability to remove these fraudsters from the program. The NFIP REACT gives them the mechanism to.
I know I introduced a bill to try to give them the authority.
Yes, sir.
So
I can't imagine the amount of wreckage that these organizations are doing in communities. I have personally lived through it. I've seen it in the bayous of Louisiana. I've seen it all over America.
You've seen it in New Jersey, haven't you?
Yes, sir, I have.
It's unconscionable.
Yes, sir.
To have these outside entities that come in and repeatedly abuse policyholders, figuratively rape them, and FEMA keeps using them time and time and time again. I wonder why.
Have an organized approach to a case. It helps when anyone is evaluating it, whether or not ultimately that can be successful.
Insurers hire third-party vendors in the claims process. Engineers, adjusters, third-party administrators, and attorneys are hired to represent the carrier's interests. Some have been caught in dishonest practices and even fraud to support systematic underpayment of claims.
60 Minutes told the story of how U.S. Forensic changed an engineer's report that originally said Ramey's house was a total loss.
It plainly said there was structural damage to the house. But this is the report the insurance company sent to Cable when they denied his claim. Quote, not structurally damaged. They said the damage was long-term. Braun told us not only were changes made to his engineering reports, but he was asked to cover it up.
How many of those reports were doctored?
At least 175 of them, or approximately 96% is the number that I calculated.
175 of your reports were doctored?
Correct. They were altered.
systematic fraud on the policyholders who filed flood claims from Sandy.
What's the fraud?
The fraud is taking engineers' reports and changing them from saying there was structural damage to saying there's no structural damage, or giving the engineers a form to fill out that already has the conclusion of no structural damage.
Why would anyone do that?
Save money.
The scheme was repeated over and over again, not only on my estimates, but on estimates written by other adjusters.
Ben Mandel has been a licensed adjuster since 2017. He did not work for Heritage, but says 18 of the 20 reports he wrote for another carrier after Hurricane Ian were altered. And he says he and other adjusters were instructed by some of their managers to leave damage off reports.
And there was a deliberate scheme to do this. And it wasn't just with one carrier doing this. This was 6 carriers that we discovered were doing this in the state of Florida. They all got the memo.
Which was?
Which was, we're not going to replace roofs. Asphalt shingle roofs. We're not going to replace them. We're going to repair them.
Mandel says he refused to leave off roofs.
They were asking me to do something that was illegal.
So the company's telling you, leave the roofs off, we're not paying for roofs, but you keep writing these roofs need replaced.
I wrote the way they're supposed to be.
And you get fired.
And I got fired.
I saw blanket denials across the board. Guidance was coming back from the carriers saying remove these items. So I would send those back to the adjuster saying remove, a fine example, remove the fireplace. Fireplace, well, they need to have an expert come in. We'll put it on the insured or the policyholder to prove additional monies are owed. So it was a systematic way of lowballing these insurers to say 80% of these people will never come back and ask for more money.
You're saying that your supervisors or the insurance companies that you worked for were telling you to pay homeowners less?
Yes, and that was done on a wide spectrum.
What the carriers are doing, in some instances, what they've said was, if the policyholder needs a new roof, then we're going to make them make us pay. In other words, file a lawsuit, and then we'll pay you for your roof.
But unless they do that, they're not getting the roof paid for?
They're not getting it. They're not getting it. Most people will not stand up and fight. I cannot tell you how many people come to me and say, hey, what was I going to do? I had to replace my roof.
And do you think the insurance companies know that? They're betting on that most people are just going to roll over?
No question they know that. They're playing the odds, and they're winning.
With UPC Insurance, I need to get a claim for it was never approved by your company as soon as you sent it up, but we need this estimate zeroed out. This is again UPC standard on these Hurricane Irma claims. It needs to be zeroed out, and the general loss statement needs to go ahead and be changed. We cannot determine the damage or the date of loss of the damage. So if you could give me a call back if you have any questions. I know you've done quite a few of these for us. I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.